Good afternoon. I am Mary Christine Jackman, Assistant Commissioner of the Department of Finance and Treasurer for the City of New York. I represent the New York City Commissioner of Finance, Preston Niblack, on the Banking Commission. I would like to start by introducing the other members of the Banking Commission. Mayor Adams' representative, Special Counsel, Chief Strategy Officer for the First Deputy Mayor, Tanya Jenneret.
Good morning.
And Comptroller Lander's representative, Deputy Comptroller for Policy, Annie Lever. The duties of the Banking Commission are threefold. It is the duty of the Banking Commission to recommend interest rates for early and late payments of real estate taxes. It's the duty of the Banking Commission to designate banks that can hold public funds. And it is the Banking Commission's duty to administer the BDD, Banking Development District program. And we're going to get to do all of that today. The primary purpose of today's meeting, dated May 9th, 2024, is for the Banking Commission to vote on its FY 2025 discount and late payment rates recommendations for the early and late payments of property taxes. B, approve a list of reviewed financial institutions as official depositories for the City of New York, more commonly known as New York City designated banks. And C, vote on an additional Banking Development District deposit of $10 million for Popular Bank. The Commission would like to welcome the members of the public who have joined us today. We look forward to hearing from those who have signed up to comment before the start of today's meeting. The Commission members have read all the written testimony submitted prior to today. A recording of these proceedings will be posted on the Banking Commission webpage of the Department of Finance website. All written testimony submitted will become part of the official record of today's meeting. We will begin the meeting with the official roll call. Tanya Jenneret, Special Counsel, Chief Strategy Officer for the First Deputy Mayor.
Present.
Annie Levers, Deputy Comptroller for Policy.
Present.
Mary Christine Jackman, Assistant Commissioner and Treasurer. Present. We have a quorum and now can conduct the business of the meeting. Acceptance of the May 25th, 2023 minutes. The next agenda item is the acceptance of the minutes of the May 25th, 2023 Banking Commission meeting, when the Commission designated New York City depository banks. The draft minutes of that Banking Commission meeting were previously distributed to the Banking Commission members for review. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes?
None.
No. If there are no comments or corrections to the minutes, may I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 25th, 2023 meeting?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the FY 2025 interest rate recommendations. Our next agenda item is the annual recommendation of interest rates for early and late payment of property taxes in fiscal year 2025. As required by Section 1519A of the New York City Charter and Section 11-224.1 of the Administrative Code, each year, the Banking Commission is responsible for recommending rates to the City Council no later than May 13th. Fiscal year 2025 discount rate recommendation. The Banking Commission recommends that the discount rate for the early payment of property taxes for fiscal year 2025 remains at 50 basis points, which is unchanged from fiscal year 2024. And actually from fiscal year 2015. Fiscal year 2025 late payment rate for certain property tax payment plans. The Banking Commission recommends that the late payment rate for certain property tax payment plans be set at 6% for fiscal year 2025. The fiscal year 2025 late payment rate recommendations. The city's fiscal 2024 rates for late payments of property taxes were 5% for properties with assessed values no more than $250,000, 8% for properties with assessed values greater than $250,000 but no greater than $450,000, and 15% for properties with assessed values greater than $450,000. The Banking Commission recommends the following fiscal year 2025 late payment rates. 9% for the late payment of taxes for properties with assessed values no more than $250,000 for fiscal year 2025. 15% for the late payment of taxes for properties with assessed values greater than $250,000 but less than or equal to $450,000 for fiscal year 2025. 18% for the late payment of taxes for properties with assessed values greater than $450,000 for fiscal year 2025. There were several factors considered in making these recommendations, including the city's need to encourage timely payment of property taxes to ensure the provision of vital services, the late payment rates charged by other comparable tax collectors across the country, interest rates charged for real estate secured consumer loans, rates charged for credit cards, and the current interest rate environment. Are there any questions regarding these interest rate recommendations? If there are no further questions, I will now read the 5 interest rate resolutions, and we will vote after I have completed each resolution. Resolution number 1, early property tax payment discount rate recommendation. Whereas, pursuant to Section 1519A of the New York City Charter, the Banking Commission shall send a written recommendation to the City Council of a proposed discount percentage for the early payment of property taxes for the ensuing fiscal year no later than the 13th of May. And whereas the Banking Commission's impact analysis for fiscal year 2025 projects that the return on investments will result in $63 million of interest earned on the taxes collected early. This will more than offset the estimates of foregone tax revenue of a negative $7.9 million, discount given, plus foregone interest income on the foregone taxes of $316,000, resulting in a net gain in revenue to the city of $54.7 million. And whereas semi-annual payers are billed twice per year and quarterly payers 4 times a year at an estimated total cost of $7.40 per invoice. When taxpayers pay their entire year's property tax early, eliminating the need for further billing, the city saves from processing fewer invoices. In fiscal year 2024, a total of 121,044 property owners made early payments, saving New York City an estimated $1.8 million in invoicing and administrative costs. If similar savings are realized in fiscal year 2025, the total impact of the 50 basis point discount will be a positive $56.5 million. And whereas the New York City's cash flow projections for June 30th, 2024, the end of fiscal year 2024, is approximately $6 billion, the Banking Commission does not recommend increasing the discount rate from 50 basis points to 100 basis points. A 100 basis point rate will not materially increase the cash flow, but would further reduce the city's tax revenues from negative $7.9 million to negative $15.8 million. And whereas there is no economic reason for the Banking Commission to change the discount rate of 50 basis points in fiscal year 2025, the impact of having this discount rate in place translates to a total net gain to the city of a positive $56.5 million. if the statutory default rate of 155 basis points were to be invoked, the city's net loss would be negative $24.4 million. If the Banking Commission were to increase the discount rate to 100 basis points, it would result in a revenue loss of approximately $15.8 million. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Banking Commission recommends to the City Council that the discount rate for the early payment of real property taxes shall remain at 50 basis points per annum for fiscal year 2025, and be it further resolved that said discount rate is to be offered only for that portion of the real estate tax that is paid before the due date. May I please have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Resolution number 2, fiscal year 2025 late payment rate for certain property tax payment plans recommendation. Whereas pursuant to Local Law 36 of the City of New York 2023, the Banking Commission shall send a written recommendation to the City Council of a proposed late payment interest rate for the late payment of certain property tax payment plans for the ensuing fiscal year no later than the 13th of May. And whereas the May 2024 applicable federal rate is 4.97%, which under Local Law 36 of 2023 must be rounded to the nearest half percentage for a base rate of 5%. And whereas the applicable federal rate has increased almost 17 basis points since last July, and whereas a rate lower than the current applicable federal rate has further tax implications for the people the law was written to help, now therefore be it resolved, the Banking Commission recommends to the City Council that the late payment rate for certain property tax payment plans shall be set at 6% per annum for fiscal year 2025. May I please have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve the resolution.
May I please have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Resolution number 3, fiscal year 2025 late property tax payment interest rate recommendation for properties assessed no more than $250,000. Whereas pursuant to the New York City Administrative Code, Section 11-224.1, the Banking Commission is required to recommend to the City Council no later than the 13th of May the proposed interest rates to be charged for non-payment of taxes for properties with assessed value not more than $250,000, or not more than $250,000 per residential unit for co-ops. And whereas the proposed interest rate shall be at least equal to the prevailing interest rate charged for commercial loans extended to prime borrowers by commercial banks operating in the city, the prime rate, and whereas the Banking Commission notes that as of May 9th, 2024, said prime rate stands at 8.5% as published by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. And whereas the Federal Reserve plans to keep rates at these levels for an extended period of time to fight the highest inflation in 40 years. At this time, there is much uncertainty in the global economy, and the FOMC does not expect it will be appropriate to reduce target rates until it has gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. And whereas it is in the city's best interest to encourage prompt payment of property taxes by all taxpayers, now therefore be it resolved. The Banking Commission recommends to the City Council that the late payment interest rate to be charged for non-payment of taxes for all properties with an assessed value of not more than $250,000 or not more than $250,000 per residential unit for co-ops be set at 9% per annum for tax year 2025. May I please have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
May I please have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution number 4, Fiscal year 2025 late property tax payment interest rate recommendation for the properties assessed greater than $250,000, but less than or equal to $450,000. Whereas pursuant to Local Law 24 of 2021, the Banking Commission is required to recommend to City Council no later than the 13th of May the proposed interest rate to be charged for non-payment of taxes for properties with an assessed value of more than $250,000, but less than or equal to $450,000, or more than $250,000, but less than or equal to $450,000 per residential unit for co-ops. And whereas said provision of Local Law 24 requires the Banking Commission to propose a rate at least 4 percentage points per annum greater than the prevailing interest rate charged for commercial loans extended to prime borrowers by commercial banks operating within the city, i.e. the prime rate. And whereas the Banking Commission notes for the record that as of May 9, 2024, said prime rate stands at 8.5% as published by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. And whereas it is in the city's best interest to encourage the prompt payment of real estate taxes by all taxpayers, now therefore be it resolved, the Banking Commission recommends to the City Council that the late payment interest rate to be charged for non-payment of real property taxes where the assessed value of the property is more than $250,000, but less than or equal to $450,000, or more than $250,000, but less than or equal to $450,000 per residential unit for co-ops, be set at 15% per annum for fiscal year 2025. May I please have a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve the resolution.
May I please have a second?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution number 5, fiscal year 2025 late property tax payment interest rate recommendation for properties assessed greater than $450,000. Whereas pursuant to the New York City Administrative Code, Section 11-224.1, the Banking Commission is required to recommend to the City Council no later than the 13th of May the proposed interest rate to be charged for non-payment of taxes for properties with an assessed value of more than $450,000 or more than $450,000 per residential unit for co-ops. And whereas said provisions of the Administrative Code require the Banking Commission to propose a rate at least 6 percentage points per annum greater than the prevailing interest rate charged for commercial loans extended to prime borrowers by commercial banks in the city, the prime rate. And whereas the Banking Commission notes for the record that as of May 9, 2024, said prime rate stands at 8.5% as published by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, and whereas it is in the city's best interest to encourage the prompt payment of real estate taxes by all taxpayers, now therefore be it resolved, the Banking Commission recommends to the City Council that the late payment interest rate to be charged for non-payment of real estate taxes where the assessed value of a property is more than $450,000 or more than $450,000 per residential unit for co-ops be set at 18% per annum for fiscal year 2025. May I please have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
May I please have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, now I get to take a breath. Okay. Now we move into the next section and our next responsibility, which is the designation of public banks, etc. And we also have time now for public comment.
All right, good morning. My name is Will Spizak from New Economy Project, a citywide economic justice organization. New Economy Project coordinates the Public Bank NYC Coalition, made up of over 40 community and labor groups and CDFIs fighting to win municipal public bank in New York City. New Economy Project and Public Bank NYC call on the Banking Commission to reject the banks that are applying for designated status today due to their egregious track record of redlining Black and brown neighborhoods and engaging in discriminatory lending practices. Furthermore, we call on the members of the Commission to actively support the establishment of a public bank in New York City. As my testimony will make clear, the problems with KeyBank and Flagstar are not exceptions to the rules, but rather they exemplify the structural inequity and racial and systemic racism embedded in our banking system. New York law requires that the city and other local governments place public deposits with commercial banks, effectively handing Wall Street a lucrative monopoly on our public deposits. This monopoly indicates our public dollars in an array of nefarious practices. In fact, many of the banks entrusted to hold city funds are notorious for engaging in harmful activities from predatory lending, redlining to fossil fuel finance. And since 2000, the city's primary deposit banks have ranked up more than $200 billion in fines and penalties for a host of unlawful discriminatory practices. We could create an alternative with a public bank that would hold our public deposits to reinvest in low-income communities in historically redlined neighborhoods. A recent report by James Parrott, the former chief economist of the city, found that a public bank would have tremendous benefits to the city of New York, including generating $6 billion in new loans to those historically redlined neighborhoods. Like many other banks we entrust with our public deposits, KeyBank and Flagstar have systemically redlined and otherwise exploited low-income Black and brown neighborhoods. KeyBank has a long history of discriminating against Black and brown borrowers. I have many details in my written testimony. I just want to highlight the most recent data from HMDA from 2022, the most recent year available, where KeyBank's denial rate of Black loan applicants in New York State was 47%, twice the rate of white applicants. Moreover, KeyBank originated just 85 loans to Black borrowers in New York compared to nearly 1,500 to white borrowers, and provided refinance loans to 76 Black borrowers compared to nearly 2,000 white borrowers. The bank also collected nearly $110 million in predatory fees from depositors last year, which disproportionately hurts Black households and low-income families. KeyBank was also noted by NCRC for having among the 50 largest mortgage lenders in the country, the worst record for lending to Black borrowers. And in 2017, KeyBank promised to make improvements to lending to Black and low and moderate income families. However, they actually ended up reducing the number of loans to Black and MMI families between 2018 and 2021. Thank you. Questions?
All right. Jody Leidecker and Joyce Ravitz from CSC.
Morning.
Good morning.
Afternoon. My name is Jody. My name is Jody Leidecker, and I work at Cooper Square Committee, and we're part of Stabilizing NYC. I lived in a dime bank building in Flatbush, and it was full of roaches, mice, bed bugs, garbage piled up, and when I told Dime Bank, it was met with crushing indifference. I worked with a Connect One building where many long-term tenants fled when the new landlord took over, and much of the building was combined, the apartments were combined out of affordability. I worked with a Flushing Bank building whose elevator was out for months. Lead was found on friction surfaces, even though the required removal of lead on friction surfaces has been in place for 20 plus years, and under the child welfare. I worked with a whole portfolio of buildings backed by, or now owned by Madison Realty Capital, which was backed by Signature Bank loans, where there was so much chaos. The former landlord, Rocky Toledano, is now banned from real estate, and there were 2 attorney general settlements. I work with tenants in a Webster Bank building that have had repeated construction issues, construction dust flying in the building, and just yesterday, a huge hole was punched in the wall of a tenant's apartment. We work with many Steve Cronin buildings that, he's largely funded by New York Community Bank. We all know his outrageous behavior was so bad, he landed in jail. I work with tenants in a First Republic-owned building, which is part of The landlord is the notorious Mark Sharpman. Tenants repeatedly had sewage flooding down their walls into their electrical outlets and lights. There was very little landlord response, so much so that the fire department had to come repeatedly. I work with tenants in a modern bank building where the landlord illegally dug out the foundation, removed supports, and still hasn't cleared the violation, while many other violations continue to accumulate there. So many of these designated depositories have been on the list of banks that loan to landlords on the worst landlord list, right? They can turn a blind eye and they can pretend innocence, but they are major players in New York City's housing problems and destabilizing people's lives. We need institutions that support tenants. We need tenant-controlled and owned housing. We support a public bank. You know, I work with hundreds of tenants, and the irony of their tax dollars being loaned to these institutions that then loan them to landlords that harass and displace them is not lost on them. These are people's lives. We need better institutions, and we need better housing for the people of New York. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce Rabbits.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? My name is Joyce Rabbits. I'm the chairperson of Cooper Square Committee, a housing organization that has been helping tenants for 65 years on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Thank you for the opportunity to submit my comments today regarding the designation of bank eligibility to hold city money. My testimony will explain why the city must use its leverage to ensure that our public money works for the public good, not for the good of some. Cooper Square Committee works with tenants and small businesses on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Many are hurt by bad landlords. Private banks help these bad landlords. Private banks only care that the landlords pay the banks back. They do not care if the money that is lent hurts physically and mentally New York City folks. Private banks are obligated to make a profit for their investors, while public banks invest in economic development to build, not extract, wealth from New Yorkers. Even in their charters, public banks are obligated to serve the public interest. How can they do that in New York? They can help small businesses stay in business. They can help tenants stay in their homes. They can finance building community control, renewable energy, so necessary for the future of New York communities. But private banks often do the opposite. Cooper Square Committee has frequently seen private banks fund companies that treat New York tenants terribly. Generally, landlords get loans from private banks only if they show a substantial profit. Profit-making banks have allowed unscrupulous landlords tactics to flourish. Private banks finance landlords who harass tenants who permit unlivable conditions. When a landlord does not give heat, electricity, or gas required by law, a private bank still collects its money. Private banks rarely supervise how their money is used as long as they make a profit. When private banks lend money to companies that are not ethical or honest, this is bad for New Yorkers, it's bad for New York business. Yet, the evidence from existing public banks is that they must serve the public interest. Public banks in New York would stay aware of issues with buildings they are involved with. Public banks would help New Yorkers. There are other reasons for keeping public banks. There's financial justice. Public banks offer responsible banking and lending services in historically redlined communities. Climate justice. Public banks invest in renewable energy and other sustainable infrastructure. Worker justice. Public banks finance small businesses which expand economic opportunity and jobs that pay a living wage. And housing justice. Public banks can invest in truly affordable low-income housing, such as community land trusts, cooperatives, and shared equity home ownership, instead of luxury housing to generate profits. Public banks do not have to make a profit, but if they do make a profit, it goes back to the city, and that's good for all who live and work in our city. I commend the Banking Commission to begin its hold on the city's banks more accountable to the public by holding this open public hearing on where the city does its banking. I am also pleased that the Commission will insist that any bank that applies to hold the city money will have to show a detailed plan on how the bank will stop lending and employment discriminations found in their operation. A public bank created by the city has a charter that states the bank must serve the public interest and will benefit all New Yorkers. The public bank could help tenants, small businesses, and other needs critical in our low-income communities that large private banks generally do not serve. In sum, ensuring public money helps advance the public. We need the city to be able to have a public bank. Thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Samuel Stein. Sam, wait a second. I do believe we have a guest. If you don't mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did see him for a second, yes.
Do you have their signing in?
Yes. You're just in time, Senator. This is, you're just in time. This is Senator Sanders. He's chairman of the Senate Committee on Banks. He also serves on the committees for Commerce, Economic Development, and Small Business, Labor, Cultural Affairs, Tourism, Procurement, Contracts, Veterans, Homeland Security, and one of my favorites, Military Affairs. Welcome, Senator.
Good to be here as a Marine. Hoorah.
I'm a Gold Star mom.
Albert Einstein once said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It is time that we start coming to the conclusion that what we're doing is not working. That if we're talking about an equitable city, if we're talking about a city of equality, it's just not happening. Every study is saying that the wealth gap is widening, that it is increasing, and that New York, of course, is at its epicenter. It's not working. By and large, the banks are not doing what they're supposed to do. We need to think outside the box. I believe that this commission actually has the ability to make a difference, and let me show you one difference. The state has what is called the unclaimed funds. That money differs, of course, it goes as large as $30 billion, it goes all over the place. This money could be given to the so-called minority development, minority banks. The banks that are doing the best at lending to people of color are the so-called minority banks. They lend the best when it comes to home loans, business loans, every other loan. If that's the case, then why don't we put the money where people are making the actual loans? The beauty of the unclaimed funds is that it has fewer restrictions. You have a different type of fiduciary responsibility. You don't have to make a lot of money. You don't have to do all of those things. you can imagine putting $5 billion of the $30 billion in there. If you did that, just $5 billion, you would equal every dollar that the minority banks have in the U.S. All of them combined have $5 billion. And New York has the ability to move almost overnight to do these things. What we're doing is not working. I have cajoled, pleaded, begged, done everything I could with the banks. I have spent on my head. I've done every single thing we can do. And the path is, the movement has been glacial. It's not moving. I get beautiful words. I get great conversations, but no movement. I'm pleading with us that we're going to have to think outside the box. We're going to have to move towards public bank. You're going to have to move towards these type of movements, or else we're going to be here 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, believing that what we're doing is working. Because I respect what you're doing and the time that you're going to spend here, I've been on those other sides, I will stop and see if there's any questions, comment, or concern that I can address.
Questions for the senator?
Be careful. Never ask me a question that you don't want the answer to. I'm here to give it to you uncut.
I want to know what your thoughts on public banks are.
We needed yesterday. We needed to have done it long ago. If that radical state, South Dakota, North Dakota actually could do a public bank, and they are not noted for their radicalism, and that bank stayed in the black, has never gone into the red, even in the market meltdown of 2008. And every year for the last 7 years has been a record year in terms of money. And other states are going, and California has already moved towards it. Philadelphia is moving there. We could go on. At a minimum, we need to study. At a minimum, we are New York. We are the home of banking. We have to do it right. It should be studied yesterday. And then if proven to be a good path, enacted immediately. I hope I gave it to you straight. If there are no other questions, comments, or statements, I did find a green beverage that I'm in favor of. Thank you kindly.
Thank
I'll
you so
send it
much,
back.
Senator. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
All right. Samuel Stein.
Thank you to the Commission for holding this hearing. My name is Samuel Stein, and I'm a Senior Policy Analyst at the Community Service Society, indeed, a nonprofit that promotes economic opportunity for all New Yorkers. One of our core areas is protecting the city's 1 million rent-stabilized apartments. Unfortunately, the affordability of the city's rent-stabilized stock has been under attack for the past 30 years, with lenders like Signature Bank, now Flagstar, playing a central role in enabling landlords' irresponsible behavior, and as we heard from previous testimonies, other banks under consideration today as well. The astronomical rise of property values between 1995 and 2018 created the conditions for landlords to generate massive profits, often at the expense of their tenants' health and safety, by increasing the size of mortgages carried by their buildings. Landlords would first increase their building's net operating income, or NOI, by hiking up rents or withdrawing services to spend less money on operations, sometimes both. With an increased NOI, landlords would go back to their lender, often Signature, now Flagstar, and refinance their building's mortgages for a higher amount. Landlords do not have any obligation to use this debt-generated profit to improve their buildings or make living conditions better for tenants. Instead, landlords often use the borrowed money to buy more rental buildings or as cash payouts for themselves and their investors. Signature's activities raise larger questions about how the city banks. Research shows that large commercial banks that the city does business with are not serving all New Yorkers fairly, as is required by the Commission's rules. A recent report by the New Economy Project, we heard from earlier, found that 4 banks that have typically held the city's largest deposits are, quote, responsible for egregious racial disparities in mortgage lending, as well as small business lending and branch distribution, unquote. Notably, Wells Fargo, a bank that was recently disciplined by the Banking Commission, yet remains a designated bank of the city, has only 1 bank branch outside of Manhattan. Given Flagstar's central role in decimating the city's rent-stabilized housing stock, we call on New York City's Banking Commission to reject their 2024 banking designation application. We also call on the members of this commission to support the establishment of a local public bank and to endorse the New York Public Banking Act. Many of the city's existing designated banks are failing the people of New York, and yet this is only the second opportunity for the public to make our voices heard in the designation process. A public bank would bring greater transparency and democratic accountability to how public funds are used and would put city deposits to work in the public interest, investing in affordable housing and expanding affordable banking services for New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you. And the handwriting, I'm sorry, I'm struggling with. Ilapa Saratar? I'm sorry. How should I have said it?
It's pronounced Iapa, but I know it's spelled Ilapa.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I want to go my name is Iapa. I'm a community organizer on the Lower East Side. In my work, I have attendants and resolving their housing issues. One of the buildings I work with, 510 East 13th Street, is owned by David Tannenbaum, ranked number 2 worst landlord by the Public Advocate's Office of Worst Landlords. The tenants of this building have experienced harassment by the super, broken entry locks, and must-need repairs, and trash and hallways blocking the exits. This building has 47 open violations by HPD. The mortgage lender for this building is JP Morgan Bank. We need to examine what criteria allows for JP Morgan Chase Bank to be included in this designated list of banks when they have a history of lending to the number 2 worst landlord in New York. We also need a public bank system to prevent such landlords from acquiring loans and for our tenants to live in better conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Travis Bostic.
Good afternoon. So the Association for Housing and Neighborhood Development thanks the New York City Banking Commission for the opportunity to submit testimony. We applaud the Banking Commission on their continued efforts to increase transparency and accountability by providing opportunities for citizens and advocates to share public testimony. We encourage the Banking Commission to take additional efforts to bring greater transparency to the public regarding banks holding city deposits.
Can you pull the microphone down so the Thank you.
The city's Banking Commission has positioned to be a valuable tool for local stakeholders and elected officials to better understand how banks are serving the city's marginalized communities, and also how prudently banks are also stewarding the city's deposits. We do have concerns about Flagstar and New York Community Bank's designation. Since the beginning of this year, we've seen the volatility of the bank from their stock price dropping significantly to police CEO changes, and we recommend the city be cautious in having the bank be in a New York City depository. The Commission should closely monitor the bank's practices, and they are one of the largest lenders to multifamily housing in New York City, and it was recently reported that many of the loans they have to landlords of rent-stabilized apartments are in the first quarter, are in default. In the first quarter of this year, I think they reported $800 million in defaults, which is about a 400% increase from the first quarter of last year. Recently, Senator Elizabeth Warren has raised concerns about New York Community Bank and Flagstar's merger. The Senate has requested the Office of the Controller the Controller of Currencies answer questions about why they approved the merger of Flagstar and New York Community Bank and the current financial challenges the facing. So as you can see, these are some pretty valid concerns. So these are things that I think the Banking Commission should consider when making a decision about their designation. Banks play a vital role in New York City's communities and economy. The ability to hold and profit from New Yorkers' hard-earned city deposits is a privilege, not a right. The city must demand more of banks seeking the privilege of holding New York City's deposits and choosing to overlook these deficiencies proposed financial risk the city really shouldn't be taking in this economic time. Although banks are required by federal statutes to report data related to their mortgages and small business lending, there needs to be more data to capture these things. The city deposits billions of dollars into these designated banks, so it is imperative that the Banking Commission take all action possible to ensure that our city dollars are being managed by entities invested in protecting New Yorkers financially. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who didn't get a chance to sign in yet who would like to make a public statement? All right, thank you. Item 5 on the agenda, 2024 designation of New York City depository banks. The next item on the agenda is the designation of banks that are permitted to handle city funds. Pursuant to Section 1524 of the New York City Charter, the Banking Commission shall designate banks in which all monies of the City of New York may be deposited. The Banking Commission has promulgated rules contained in Title 22 of the Rules of the City of New York, otherwise known as RCNY, which set forth the requirements for designation of depository banks. In accordance with Title 22 RCNY, the following proposed resolution is for the Commission's approval to designate the following banks as New York City depository banks for a one-year period commencing May 9th, 2024. Resolution number 6, 2024, approval of New York City depository banks. Whereas pursuant to Section 1524 of the New York City Charter, the Banking Commission is responsible for designating banks that are permitted to hold city funds. And whereas pursuant to Title 22 of the Rules of the City of New York, RCNY, Section 1-03B, the term of the designation shall be for a period of no longer than 2 years. In this case, however, the designation will be only 1 year, as the biennial designations begin again in 2025. Unless the Banking Commission by a majority vote extends such designation period. Whereas the following 3 banks have submitted the required documents and meet the basic requirements to become a New York City depository bank. The banks that have submitted documentation are Bank of Montreal, Key Bank, New York Community Bank / Flagstar. Resolved, the Banking Commission approves the list of banks to become New York City depository banks for 1 year. Are there any questions or discussion on the resolution to approve these banks for designation?
I'd like to make a statement. Thank you, Assistant Commissioner Jackman. First, I want to extend my appreciation for everyone for coming to testify today. That includes Senator Sanders, who co-hosted a roundtable with our office recently with minority depository institutions. We are really excited to work with Senator Sanders on finding ways to route more of the city's resources to the city's minority depository institutions. Commissioner Niblack was in attendance and seemed really engaged and interested to work with you, so we're looking forward to working with you on those next steps. I also want to thank New Economy Project, Community Service Society, Cooper Square Committee, and AMHD all for showing up today. We're also grateful to DOF staff and our partners in the Adams administration who worked with us last cycle to institute this public hearing, transparency measures to combat discrimination in the banking sector, and stricter scrutiny of bank financials. I also want to thank Sam Stanton on my team, who carefully reviewed all of the bank's applications this year, and Francesco Brucci for his consultation and support. Just like any other entity seeking to do business with the city, we expect banks to fully comply with the Commission's rules for applications, and for those applications to reflect a sound financial position and a meaningful commitment to community reinvestment and combating discrimination. To that end, I want to thank everyone again for testifying today on issues that really should directly inform the Commission's work, from the need for a public bank to discrimination experienced by New Yorkers right here in our city. We also heard testimony on Key Bank and Flagstar Bank's history of problematic practices in particular. Per the bank's applications, Flagstar in particular, their credit is rated speculative by Fitch and high risk by Moody's. To our knowledge, it will be unprecedented for the Commission to fully designate a bank with these ratings. We recognize that the accounts held by the city at Flagstar provide services that would be difficult to replace, and that the bank recently announced a turnaround plan that will hopefully improve its financial positions in coming months. But given the bank's concerning ratings and the testimony we heard today, we believe a one-year conditional designation for Flagstar would be both appropriate under the Commission's rules and more prudent. Conditional designation would allow the city agencies to keep their existing accounts open, but preclude the city from doing any new business with the bank for 1 year. Because conditional designation is not under consideration by the Commission today, I will vote yes on Key Bank and BMO Bank and no on Flagstar Bank. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? The only thing that I would like to bring attention to in the meeting is that at this point, the city has accounts with Flagstar Bank and with Key Bank, and both institutions have committed way more capital and collateral to the city than is legally required. So in all instances, we are paying attention every day to the balances there. It is also the understanding that as long as a bank is designated, we have more ability to influence their behavior than if they don't have to pay attention to us at all. So, having said that, are there any more questions? All right. May I please have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve?
Second the motion?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote in favor of BMO and Key Bank.
Opposed?
I oppose Flagstar Bank.
Thank you. The motion carried. The next item on the agenda is the necessity exemption for Capital One Bank. Title 22, RCNY, Section 1-03F1, authorizes the Banking Commission to designate as a city depository a bank that does not meet the requirements for designation of city monies, where in its discretion the deposit of such monies in such bank is necessary to obtain essential services that are not reasonably attainable elsewhere. It is due to this reasoning that the Banking Commission has discretion pursuant to this provision, known as the necessity exemption, to conditionally designate Capital One Bank. The conditional designation prohibits the city from entering new contracts with Capital One Bank and requires the city to replace Capital One Bank with another provider when existing contracts expire. While Capital One provides community service through the HPD loans, Capital One chose not to submit the extensive application package required for designation or to enter information into the passport system for redesignation. Necessity exemption of Capital One Bank. Whereas, pursuant to Section 1524 of the New York City Charter, the Banking Commission is responsible for designating banks that are permitted to hold city funds. And whereas, pursuant to Title 22 RCNY Section 1-03E1II, a New York City depository bank must submit the required documentation. And whereas in accordance with Title 22 RCNY, Capital One chose not to submit documentation required for designation. And whereas the bank provides unique services for the Department of Housing and Preservation Development that cannot easily be duplicated with another provider. Therefore, be it resolved, the Banking Commission hereby designates Capital One Bank as a depository bank commencing May 9, 2024 until the current HPD agreements expire. Are there any questions or discussion on the resolution to designate Capital One Bank under the necessity exception clause? Hearing none, may I please have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
May I please have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And then as the third item in the duties and responsibilities of the Banking Commission, Popular Bank Banking Development District deposit. The last agenda item is the request by Popular Bank for a $10 million BDD deposit at the bank's newly approved Banking Development District branch located at 374 East 149th Street neighborhood in the Bronx. This is Popular's 6th BDD branch, approved by the New York State Department of Financial Services in March 2023. The Commission recommends that the City of New York make a $10 million deposit at the Popular Bank Bronx, New York Banking Development District branch. Resolution, Popular Bank Bronx BDD deposit. Whereas the New York State Department of Financial Services has approved a 6th branch of Popular Bank to participate in the Banking Development District program, and whereas Popular Bank has requested that the City of New York make a $10 million deposit in its Bronx BDD branch, located at 374 East 149th Street in the Bronx, therefore be it resolved. The Banking Commission approves a $10 million New York City Banking Deposit District deposit at the Popular Bank Bronx BDD branch. May I please have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve the resolution.
May I please have a second?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Are there any other items of business to be brought before the Commission tonight? All right. Then, hearing none, I am going to take a minute of personal privilege and say thank you to D.C. Schlane's Tax Policy and Data Analytics team, Matthew Penfold, Alexander James, and John Campagna. Thank you to D.C. Carney's Finance Information Technology team, Kirk Ning, Jean Cassiano, Thomas Hageron, Aswita El-Sukari, D.C. Zimmerman's Treasury team, Watan Florajou, and Jana Azagrova, because these are the people that put together all of the analysis and did all of the background work for today's event, and I want to thank them. Having completed the business of this meeting, can someone please make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
May I please have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Have a great year. Thank you so much for coming and for expressing your opinions. And thank you to Senator Sanders for honoring us with his presence.